In this video, we are going to talk about Virtual, some of its recent price action, as well as the important support and resistance areas, and where we can expect the price of Virtual to go in the coming days and weeks. So we'll start by looking at the weekly chart, and what I can see here is a very clear structure of lower highs but higher lows. This creates some sort of a wedge right here, and right now we are very close to the bottom of this wedge, and with wedges eventually a breakout is inevitable, either up or down. It's not so clear where it's going to break out right now, and it could still take months for the breakout to actually happen. There is absolutely no sign of a breakdown below this wedge at the moment, and we have not lost the significant support area that is this trend line, and we will likely create a slightly higher low right here and get a bounce from this level. This actually works very well in correlation with what I'm thinking that Bitcoin will do in the coming weeks. Bitcoin has recently dumped a lot in the last couple of months, all the way from the all-time high of about 126k all the way down to about 80k. It since then pumped a little bit to over 90k, and I think that the most likely outcome is that we will see Bitcoin continuing its relief rally, most likely to above 100k in the coming weeks. And if that does happen, then the possibility of Virtuals also creating a higher low and continuing to range in this wedge is very high, and I think that then the chance of Virtual getting all the way back up to the upper part of the wedge at around $1.6 is very high. Predicting whether eventually Virtual will break up or down from this wedge is really difficult at the moment, because this is something that could happen in a very long time, possibly very deep into 2026. And what's going on with the entire crypto market in general is really not clear at the moment. Are we in a bear market? How long is it going to last? Maybe we're still in a stretched bull market and the 4-year cycle broke. It's still completely unclear, and obviously with altcoins, the correlation of them with Bitcoin is going to be very high, and they really depend on how Bitcoin does and the rest of the crypto market in general. So what Virtual is going to do is most likely going to be very correlated with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin can actually sustain its relief rally and approach new all-time highs, then Virtual has a very good chance of actually creating a higher high for the first time in over a year and breaking above this wedge, which could lead to much higher prices, possibly even all the way up to the previous all-time high at about $4. But of course, this is really far away right now and very speculative, but completely possible in my opinion if Bitcoin reaches new all-time highs and Ethereum breaks above 5k, and we see a period of euphoria in the entire crypto market and a potential alt season. Obviously, since the beginning of the year, basically since the end of 2024, Virtual has been performing very poorly, but in my opinion, the structure is still looking decent. We still have the higher lows, and the critical question for Virtual, in my opinion, is whether it breaks up or down from this wedge, which, as I explained, will likely be dependent on what Bitcoin does in the coming months. But I think that at least a relief rally all the way up to about $1.60 to the upper part of this wedge sometime in the coming months is very likely. What would invalidate that is if we actually start seeing Virtual just continuing to drop and closing weekly candles below this trend line and getting a lower low, breaking below this previous low that we had back in October. If that does happen, then the structure will be completely invalidated, and this will just turn into a structure of lower highs and lower lows. This will likely be paired with Bitcoin getting a lower low, and if that does happen and we're just entering a full-on bear market, then Virtual doesn't have a lot of hope, in my opinion, at least for the coming months, and most likely even for the entire year of 2026, until we start the next bull market, which will likely only happen sometime later in 2026 or potentially even in 2027. But again, with both the bullish and the bearish scenarios, they are both very far away and very speculative at the moment. As I said, in the short term, I think the most likely outcome is a bounce from here and getting up to the upper part of this wedge, but it is not guaranteed whatsoever. In general, in my opinion, most altcoins will likely underperform Bitcoin and Ethereum in the coming weeks, at least until we start seeing Bitcoin getting a more sustained recovery and we start potentially even seeing Bitcoin and Ethereum approaching new all-time highs, or at least getting close to the previous all-time high. until we see that type of move happening and a much more significant recovery by the entire crypto market, most altcoins will likely lag behind Bitcoin. Because Bitcoin leads the bull market, when Bitcoin is struggling, most altcoins will struggle even a lot more. Of course, there will be some exceptions, but most altcoins will not be that exception, and it's not very wise to be heavy into altcoins right now, in my opinion. Of course, this isn't financial advice, but it's just what I think. That's going to be it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe to not miss any future updates. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.